Hi, I'm Kate.
And I'm Sarah.
Today we will be explaining the effects of different modes of transport on the environment.
You probably travelled by car, bus, trains, trams, walking or biking, maybe even all of them. So why are some of them so bad?
Well, before we find out, we should look at the science concept first.
That's a great idea. According to the Australian government, there are two types of emissions that can impact our surrounding environment. These are greenhouse gas emissions, where heat from the sun is trapped in the Earth's atmosphere, which can lead to environmental effects such as climate change. One of these gases is called carbon dioxide, or CO2. Carbon dioxide is created from one carbon atom and two oxygen atoms, and can come from living and non-living organisms such as plants and cars. The other type of emissions are air pollutants, where toxic pollutants such as carbon monoxide and nitric oxide are emitted from transport vehicles such as cars and buses via exhaust.
Hold on a second. What is carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxides?
Carbon monoxide is a toxic gas that can come from transport such as cars. By mass, it is the biggest pollutant gas and has levels around 100 times higher in city areas than in Earth's atmospheres overall.
That's crazy. What about nitrogen oxides?
Great question. Similar to carbon monoxide, nitric oxide pollute the air. They are formed when oxygen combines with nitrogen at a high temperature. This process is called combustion.
Okay, so when we drive a car, pipes allow these gases to leave the car and then they go into the air and damage it?
Exactly.
Wow, we definitely need to have a look at how we travel to reduce the impact of our carbon emissions on the environment.
We do, and we know that this is important as the Victorian science curriculum outlines the necessity for building knowledge so that we can make sense of the effects of our actions. This topic also relates to chemical sciences, as students will learn about different gases as well as cross-curriculum priorities as it relates to sustainability.
That is so true, and we need to understand how our decision to drive a car could have worse outcomes for climate change than walking to school or work. Before we get into this, let us cut to a few interviews that Sarah conducted with members of the public about their mode of transport.
Hey everyone, I've hit the streets to investigate what people think about transport. Hi everyone, so now I'm joined with my friend Julia. So Julia, what's your preferred mode of transport?
Hello, I drive.
Okay, and do you consider the emissions made from your travel choice?
No, not really. Yeah, it's easiest for me, so yeah.
Okay, so you put ease over the environment, is what you're saying.
Wow. Well, in a way, but I don't think I'm the only person that drives,
yes.
So I can't be that big of an impact.
Yep, awesome. Hey everyone, now I'm joined with another friend. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gabby.
So I just have a few questions for you about your direct mode of transport. So currently, what's your most used mode of transport?
To uni, I take the train and the tram, but locally around my house, I drive my own car.
Okay, and do you consider the emissions that your car might make instead of over public transport?
No, I really don't, but for locally, it's easier to get around driving my car. So, yeah.
Cool, thank you for that. Hey everyone, I'm joined with my friend. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Charlotte.
And I just got some questions for you about your modes of transport. So for the first one, what's your go-to mode of transport?
So for coming to uni, I catch a train and a tram, but around at home, I usually walk or I drive.
That's really good. And do you really consider the carbon emissions that are made when you take the tram or the train?
I try and think about it, and I think that's why I catch the train, because it's usually less emissions, I'm pretty sure, than cars, because there's hundreds of people on the train and the trams and things like that.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Wow, Sarah, that was really interesting. Was there anything that stood out to you?
Definitely. I thought it would be important to reflect on the public's responses to my transport-related questions. I concluded that most people mainly commuted by car and had little knowledge about the impacts their choices had on the environment. This therefore emphasises the need for further education regarding the effects your actions can have on the environment.
That actually makes a lot of sense when we look at a few key statistics. Results from a study in 2022 by the Australian government showed that the transport sector in Australia made up 19% of our overall emissions, and without intervention, it is predicted that by 2030, transport will be the largest source of emissions in our environment. The same study also found that a whopping 66% of all transport emissions came from passenger vehicles. That's insane.
This shows us that transport as we know it needs to change because the negative effects on the environment are only increasing.
Before we get into the solutions, there are a few things that we need to consider. Firstly, populations in cities are growing, but there is not enough room for everyone. This means that people need to live further out and travel into the city from further away.
Why is this an issue?
This is an issue because travelling long distances is the cause for more than 50% of greenhouse gas emissions from private transport. Additionally, road transport is the reason for more than 73% of carbon dioxide emissions in Europe, showing that we need to improve accessibility for other public transport options to faraway areas to reduce this figure.
For example, having more train lines and stations could be a solution to this issue, as trains are better for the environment. Furthermore, the New South Wales government supports this by saying that for each passenger kilometre travelling by rail, greenhouse gas emissions are up to 5 times less than that of car transport.
Moreover, our reliance on passenger and freight transportation will continue to increase, which is why it is important to intervene with other methods. We are confident that cars will become more efficient in the future, but what would this look like?
Well, low carbon fuels will need to be used to help increase vehicle efficiency and lower carbon modes of transport, such as buses and trains, and again, going to be relied on.
Okay, so how are buses better if they are still a form of road transport?
That's a great question. Buses can carry far more people at one time than a car, meaning that less trips need to be made, and reducing the amount of greenhouse gases on the environment. This also changes the effects on the atmosphere and consequently climate change.
That makes sense.
As we near the end of the video, we would like to present some ways that you and your families could reduce your environmental impact created by transport.
Firstly, if possible, you can encourage your family to walk or take public transport to school and other activities.
Or you could carpool with your neighbours and classmates who live nearby to reduce the amount of car trips made to and from school each morning.
That's a great idea. As educators, we could also continue to inform students on the impacts of increased emissions, as well as encouraging other routes of transport.
Yes, and your school could also install things such as secure bike sheds to encourage students to ride their bike to and from school each morning, and to be able to lock it away during the day.
Maybe schools could even offer rewards, such as the free breakfast to all those students who try to change up their routine and take an environmentally friendly way of transport, such as walking or cycling. I know I'd love that.
Me too. Look, I've had a lot of fun discussing the impacts of different forms of transport on the environment, but I think a quick summary could be useful.
Today we learned that road transport can release carbon dioxide, monoxide and nitrogen oxides into the atmosphere, which will result in climate change. We also learned some interesting statistics about transport in Australia and other parts of the world, considerations as to why this could be, and solutions for what we could do in the future.
That's great. I really hope all our viewers were listening, as we have a 3-question test to test your knowledge.
Alright, let's get started. How much higher are the levels of carbon monoxide in urban areas compared to the atmosphere? Is it A, 10 times, B, 30 times, C, 50 times, or D, 100 times?
Question 2. What percentage of our emissions is made up by transport? Is it A, 5%, B, 15%, C, 19%, or D, 35%?
Final question. What is the best mode of transport that you should consider? Is it A, train, B, car, C, walking, or D, catching the bus?
Now for the answers, so drum roll please. D, 100 times, C, 19%, and C, walking.
We sincerely hope that you enjoyed our presentation and learnt how you can apply this information to your life.
See you next time.
Bye!
See ya.